I lived a lie without even suspecting it. My name is Andrew. I'm 36 years old. I always considered myself a happy man. I had a beautiful wife, Emily, smart, well-groomed, smiling. It seemed that I had won the main prize in life. We were together for more than 7 years, and during that time, I never once doubted her. I trusted her as I trusted myself, but it was the biggest mistake of my life. I had a stable business, which allowed me to provide for our family without any financial problems. I wasn't a billionaire, but I had enough money to live comfortably. Black small square, a beautiful house in a prestigious neighborhood. Black small square, trips abroad. Expensive clothes and jewelry for my wife. Dinners at restaurants. Private schools for future children. I worked day and night to provide us with the best life. I thought I was doing everything right, but while I was working, Emily was doing completely different things. She always looked perfect. Carefully styled hair, expensive perfume, stylish clothes, professional makeup. She never complained. Didn't ask for more money. Didn't demand expensive gifts. On the contrary, she played the role of the perfect wife. Black small square made breakfast. Black small square sent me sweet messages throughout the day. Black small square took care of me when I was sick. Black small square always said she was proud of me. I thought we were a happy couple, but I had no idea that she had masterfully created an illusion for me, and I completely believed this lie. But one day something changed. It all started with small details. She became more withdrawn. Her smile seemed less sincere, and sometimes there was something strange in her eyes, as if she was hiding something. I didn't attach any importance to it. I explained it by fatigue, stress, bad mood. I didn't want to think about the worst. But this was only the beginning of my nightmare. I was living a perfect lie, not even suspecting that very soon it would collapse before my eyes. The little things that rendered her lies. I always believed that a strong marriage was built on trust. I didn't check her phone. I didn't ask unnecessary questions. I didn't get jealous for no reason. Emily liked that. She always said that she hated jealous men who interrogated her every time she called. I thought we were above that. I believed that she loved me as much as I loved her, but my world began to crumble at the seams when I noticed little things that couldn't be ignored. At first, it was small changes. Black small square, she started staying out late more often, although she used to always wait for me at home. Black small square, she started taking more care of her appearance, even when she just went out for coffee with her friends. Black small square, her phone had become a no-go zone for me. Before, it would just lie on the table, but now she never left it unattended. Black small square, she would delete the messages she received, without even reading them aloud. I didn't suspect the worst yet, but my instinct screamed that something was wrong. One day we were sitting at dinner. I was telling her about a difficult day at work, and she was barely listening to me. Her phone lit up with a message. I inadvertently glanced at the screen and only managed to see the first word, "Darling." She instantly grabbed the phone. Her fingers quickly closed the screen, and then she looked up at me. I saw panic. She tried to smile, but that smile was strained, nervous. "Who is it?" I asked. She answered too quickly. "My friend." I was cold. I knew it was a lie. But then I still couldn't believe that my Emily could have cheated on me. It's just girls fooling around. She laughed out loud, but her laugh sounded unnatural. "Will you show me?" I said it calmly, but I knew she wouldn't show it. She pretended to be offended. "What? Don't you trust me? It's just personal conversations. We're discussing girly things." I felt uncomfortable. She knew how to manipulate me. She knew that if she played the offended role, I would feel guilty. I didn't insist, but something changed inside. This was the first crack in our marriage. That night, when she fell asleep, I lay awake for a long time. I didn't want to be the man who suspected his wife, but something inside me screamed that I had to figure out. I didn't know yet that this was just a beginning. What I would learn later would destroy everything I believed in. The first blow to my trust. The next day, I woke up with a heavy feeling in my chest. Something inside me screamed that I could no longer ignore the obvious. I tried to put that moment at dinner out of my mind. Could it really be her friend? Could it be that I was just exaggerating? But when I looked at Emily, I saw a different person. Something in her eyes had changed. Now it was colder, as if she no longer perceived me the way she used to. For the first time, I wondered, did she really love me, or was this just a game? She acted as if nothing had happened. She was smiling again, gentle, made me breakfast, sent me to work with a kiss on the cheek. Everything seemed to be fine. But now I saw her differently. Now I knew all this would be just a mask. I couldn't concentrate all day at work. I sat in my office, looking at documents, but my thoughts revolved around only one thing. What if she really is cheating on me? I caught myself thinking that I want to check her phone, but that was wrong. I always believed that. Real relationships are built on trust. But can you trust a woman who hides messages from you? That evening I returned home earlier than usual. Emily wasn't expecting me so early. I went into the house, and the first thing I heard was a soft laugh in the living room. I slowly walked toward the sound, and I saw her. She was sitting on the couch, holding her phone in her hands, and texting someone. Her lips were slightly bitten. Her eyes were shining, and there was a playful smile on her face. I had never seen her smile like that when she talked to me. She looked up and saw me. Her smile instantly disappeared. She grabbed the phone, sharply turned off the screen, and tried to pretend that nothing had happened. "Oh, you're home," she said, trying to speak as naturally as possible. But I could see her nervousness. She didn't even get up to hug me, as she always did. "Who are you talking to?" I asked calmly. She turned away for a second. "With a friend," she answered, not looking me in the eye. I felt anger boiling inside me. Again, that lie. I took a step forward. "Show me the message." Her fingers tightened their grip on the phone. "Are you serious?" She laughed in surprise, as if I had just suggested something absurd. "You never asked to read my messages. What? Are you suspecting me now?" She was playing the offended wife again. Before, I would have believed her. I would have made excuses. I would have said, "I'm just kidding." But this time, I just stared at her silently, and she realized that her show wasn't working. I didn't press her. I just turned around silently and went to the bedroom. I heard her exhale with relief, but now it was her problem, because this time I wasn't going to just leave it like that. I had to find out the truth, even if that truth destroyed me forever. My first steps to discovering the truth. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Emily, listening to her even breathing, and thinking that maybe, for the first time in a long time, I was sleeping next to a stranger. I had to find out the truth. If I was wrong, then it would be the worst mistake of my life. But if I was right, then this woman ruined our marriage long before I did. I felt angry. Angry at myself for not noticing it sooner. Angry at her for looking me in the eye and lying. But now the main thing was to find the evidence. The next morning, when Emily was in the bathroom, I dared to take the first step. I took her phone. It was blocked. Always. I smiled. She had never blocked my phone for me before. Before I could use it freely if, for example, mine was dead. But now she had turned it into a safe with secrets. I put the phone back. I wasn't going to crack the password. I didn't want to look like an obsessed, jealous person. But this was more evidence. She was hiding something from me. I started watching. After work, I didn't go home right away. I waited in the car, watching to see if she was going somewhere, whether anyone would show up near our house. I paid attention to how she behaved. Black small square, her phone was always in her hands. She even took it with her to the shower. Black small square, she started putting on makeup more often before going out, even when she went just to have coffee. Black small square, she stopped looking me in the eye when she talked about her day. Black small square, her meetings with friends suddenly started going late into the night. She wasn't like this before. I knew my wife. I knew when she was honest. And now I could see she was lying. I couldn't take it anymore. One day, when she said that she was going to meet a friend, I decided to act. I waited until she left. I got in the car and started following her. I had to know the truth, even if it turned out to be unbearable. I followed her and saw something I could no longer ignore. My fingers gripped the steering wheel. My heart pounded, and my thoughts were jumbled. I didn't want to be the man who stalked his own wife. It seemed low, pitiful, but it would have been worse to remain ignorant. So I followed her car, keeping a safe distance, but not letting her out of my sight. She didn't go to the cafe. Her car drove through the city center, then turned onto a quiet street and stopped outside a small hotel. My stomach clenched into a tight knot. Hotel? I parked a little further away and watched her through the windshield. She got out of the car and began to look around nervously, as if checking to see if anyone was watching her. And then something happened that made everything inside me go cold. A man approached her. He was tall, well-dressed, confident. I recognized him immediately. Daniel, my friend, my business partner. Someone I trusted almost as much as I trusted Emily herself. And he stood in front of me, embracing my wife. She grabbed his hand, said something, and together they disappeared through the hotel doors. I sat in the car, feeling everything inside me, breaking into pieces. I had 1,000 options for what to do. Black small square, run out of the car, break into the hotel, and make a scandal for them all over the block. Black small square, text her right now. Where are you? And wait to see what lies she'll come up with this time. Black small square, continue to sit here and watch. My wife spent the night with another man, but I did the unexpected, even for myself. I calmed down. I took a deep breath. I wiped my sweaty palms on my jeans, and I realized that this was my chance. If I did everything right, they would pay me for it in full. I went home, not because I was afraid, not because I didn't have the courage to face them, but because I needed a plan. I didn't want to just expose her for cheating. I wanted to destroy them both. And I knew that I had to act cold-bloodedly, because the best revenge is not just to expose a liar, it's to make them lose everything they had. I was returning home, and a plan for their downfall was already forming in my head. My revenge begins. I returned home, but I couldn't sit still. Anger, disappointment, the disgusting bitterness of betrayal mixed inside me, but I didn't let emotions get the better of me. I had to be smarter than them. I didn't want to just make a scandal and let them get away with it. They had to pay for everything in full. And for that, I needed evidence. I opened my laptop and started looking for ways to document their betrayal. I could hire a private investigator, but that would take time. And I needed to act quickly, so I focused on what I could do on my own. The first thing I did was check the surveillance cameras in our house. We had a security system that recorded every exit and entrance to the house. I rewound the recordings and saw Daniel come to our house. When I wasn't home, he would come in casually. He could stay for several hours and then leave without even bothering to cover his tracks. That was the first confirmation of my suspicions. The second thing I did was install an additional camera in our living room, disguised among the books on the shelf. If they ever met here, I would have irrefutable proof. But most importantly, I decided to check the business records. Daniel and I were partners. I trusted him with my finances, just as I trusted my brother. But what if he had cheated on me with more than just his wife? I cracked the password to the shared accounting server and began to analyze his expenses in detail. What I saw shocked me even more than his affair with Emily. Daniel was taking money out of the company. Huge sums. He was transferring it to accounts that were hidden from me over the past 6 months. Our joint assets had disappeared by the hundreds of thousands of dollars. This wasn't just betrayal. This was complete deception and theft. They weren't just betraying me. They were robbing me together, planning my financial destruction. I took a deep breath. I took a sip of whiskey, and I realized the most important thing. I didn't just want to punish them. I wanted to destroy them both so badly that they could never recover. And now I had a plan. The game is on. I'm setting a trap. I sat in front of my laptop, looking at the undeniable evidence of betrayal and theft. My hands clenched into fists, but I couldn't let myself act impulsively. I had to do everything perfectly. If I made a fuss now, they would just disappear for my money, get rid of all the evidence, and leave me with nothing. No, that's not for me. I would destroy them quietly, step by step, make sure they didn't even realize what was happening until they were completely broken. The first thing I did was cut off their access to the money. I logged into the company system, secretly changed the passwords on all the accounts, and transferred the main assets to a separate safe deposit box, to which Daniel had no access. Now, every dollar was under my control. I wasn't going to give him a single cent. Second, I started collecting even more evidence. I called a lawyer I knew and found out that for a divorce and a complete financial victory, I needed undeniable evidence of infidelity. So I ordered the installation of hidden cameras. In our house, they didn't know that their every word, every look, and every touch would now be recorded. Third, I decided to give them a small gift. I deliberately started spending less time at home, gave them a sense of complete freedom, so that they would stop hiding and make a fatal mistake. Every morning I would say, "Honey, I'm late today. I have a lot of things to do. Daniel, brother, you know how it is. Business doesn't wait." And most surprisingly, they really believed me. When I got home, I would watch the hidden camera videos. They wasted no time. Daniel would come to my house. They would hug, kiss. He would even sleep in my bed. I was almost sick of it, but I forced myself to watch it all the way to the end. That was my motivation. A little more, and I would be able to hit them so that they would never get up. And finally, I was preparing for the decisive blow. I invited Daniel to a meeting under the pretext of important financial matters. I knew he would not be able to refuse. He thought he was still in control of the situation. But at this meeting, he would not just lose everything he had. He would find out that now his life was completely ruined. The trap was set. The game had begun. Playing a friend, knowing the truth, is the hardest part of the plan. The next day, I met Daniel in our office. He was sitting at his expensive oak desk, relaxed back in his chair, and smiling at me as if there was nothing suspicious between us. That was the hardest part, sitting in front of a man who had betrayed me on every level and pretending I didn't know anything. I wanted to just break his confidence with one blow, but that was too easy. I wanted to look him in the eye when he realized that his life was ruined. "Brother," he said, smiling, "you look tired. Did something happen?" "Oh, if you only knew." I smiled back. "Just a lot of work." "Listen, I wanted to talk to you about finances." His eyes narrowed for a moment. "Is something wrong?" "No, it's fine. I just want to make sure we're both on the same page about some of the payments." I was deliberately using careful phrasing, not giving him any hint that I suspected anything. I wanted to give him a false sense of control. He laughed lightly. "Well, you know, I'm always in control." "Oh, you never know what's going to be out of your control soon." I pulled out some papers for us to sign. Among them were new financial documents, which, according to my plan, transferred all legal responsibility to him. He didn't even read them, just signed them quickly, thinking it was just another boring formality. I could barely contain my smile. Now, all the account manipulation is his problem. When the truth comes out, he'll be the only one responsible. "How are you and Emily?" he asked suddenly, as if in passing. I almost lost control. The scumbag slept with my wife, and now he's asking how I'm doing with her? I forced a smile. "It's great. I'm thinking of giving her a surprise." "Oh, what kind?" "I haven't decided yet, but something special." I knew he couldn't help but suspect something, but his expression was one of curiosity, not fear. He was sure that he was safe, and that was perfect, because the less he suspected, the more severe his fall would be. After the meeting, I left the office, stopped by my car, and took a deep breath. I had taken another step towards their destruction, but the main blow was ahead. Now it was time to lay out all the cards and end this once and for all. Time for a headband. I got home earlier than usual. Emily wasn't expecting this. I walked into the house, and the first thing I noticed was a strange expression on her face. She usually greeted me with a smile, a hug, a kiss on the cheek, but today she was noticeably tense. "Are you home yet?" Her voice was a little high-pitched, as if she couldn't hide her anxiety. "Yes," I said calmly, taking off my jacket and hanging it on a hanger. Work ended early, so I decided to spend the evening at home. I deliberately watched her reaction closely. She froze for a moment and then smiled wryly. "Oh, great. I was just thinking about meeting the girls." I almost laughed out loud. Again, this lie. I'd seen the videos. I knew she never met her friends. She met Daniel, but she wasn't going anywhere today. You know, I was just thinking. I began, sitting down on the couch. She approached cautiously, as if she didn't understand what was happening. "What is this?" I took a small black envelope from my pocket. "This is for you," I said, handing it to her. She raised her eyebrows in surprise. "What is this?" "Open it." She slowly opened the envelope, pulled out several photos, and in that instant her face turned pale. They were camera shots. Every moment, she and Daniel were together in our house. Her fingers trembled, her lips parted, but she couldn't say a word. She knew that I knew now. I leaned forward, looking into her frightened eyes. "You wanted to meet your friends, right?" I said quietly. "Or maybe Daniel?" She raised her head sharply. It's not what you think." I laughed. "Oh, no, Emily, it's exactly what I think." I took out my phone and turned on the video from the cameras. Everything was on the screen. The kisses, the hugs, even the moments when she kissed him in our bed. She put her hands over her mouth. Her shoulders shook. "Andrew, I can explain everything." "No need. I've already drawn my conclusions." She huddled in a corner, her eyes welling up with tears. But I didn't care. All her tears were lies. "What now?" She whispered softly. I stood up, pulled out another envelope, and threw it on his desk. "These are divorce papers. I prepared them in advance. You have two options. Either you sign them now and leave this house, or I'll file them with the court along with these notes." Her face turned white as chalk. "Andrew, no, we can fix this." I laughed in her face. "You've already ruined everything." She burst into tears, slumped on the floor, but I didn't even feel sorry. She made this choice herself, and now she's going to have to pay for her mistakes. The final blow. Emily sat on the floor, clutching the envelope with the divorce papers in her hands. Her eyes were red. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. But I didn't care. She had betrayed me. She had done it brazenly, and she didn't even have the courage to admit her guilt. And now it was my turn to ruin her life. "You want a divorce just like that?" Her voice trembled, but she was still trying to play the innocent role. "Just like that?" I laughed. "Oh, no, Emily, you have no idea what awaits you." I took out another document and threw it in front of her. "This is the contract you signed when we first got married." Her eyes widened. "A marriage contract." "Exactly." I nodded contentedly. "When we first got married, I suggested that she sign a contract according to which, in case of betrayal, she would not receive a penny from me." She laughed then, said that it was nonsense, because we would never break up. "How everything has changed, hasn't it? You can't do this to me. You can't leave me with nothing." She panicked. Her fingers clenched the paper, as if it could make a difference. I leaned towards her and said quietly, coldly, "I already did it." She gasped, as if she had only just realized her situation. "Daniel, he will help me." I smiled. "Oh, I took care of Daniel too." I slowly opened my laptop and pressed a few keys. Financial documents appeared on the screen, confirming his company's machinations. He was withdrawing money? Yes, but thanks to me, all the documents, point to him being the one to blame. She covered her mouth with her hands, her eyes darting around the screen, as if she was trying to find salvation. But he wasn't there. You framed him. You'll destroy him. Are you worried about him? I thought you'd be worried about yourself. She froze. I took out my phone and pressed send. What did you do? I just sent these documents to the IRS and the police. Daniel had a few hours left before he was arrested. Emily began to tremble. No, you can't. I can do anything. I calmly got up and headed for the door. You have 30 minutes to pack your things and leave. I don't want to see you in my house anymore. She burst into tears, begged, but I didn't care. She didn't think about me when she cheated. She didn't think about us when she used me, and now she got what she deserved. I closed the door behind me, leaving her in the darkness of my own downfall, and I went to build my new life, where there was no place for betrayal and lies. The last act of the show, I got in the car, started the engine, and took a deep breath. I had just closed the door on the past. But instead of relief, I felt emptiness. Yes, I had won. Yes, I had paid them back for their betrayal. But for some reason, I didn't feel joy. Maybe because it wasn't love. It was an illusion that I had built up over years, and that they had destroyed in a matter of months. I looked at my phone. A notification from my lawyer. The police have received the documents. Daniel has been detained. The trial has already begun. The end. He got what he deserved. I imagined the look on his face when he realized that he had lost everything. Black small square is company. Black small square is status. Black small square is freedom. I wish I was there. I wish I could hear his excuses, to see him beg, and realize that it no longer matters. As for Emily, she disappeared. I left for 30 minutes for a meeting, and when I returned, she had already left. No notes, no goodbyes. She wasn't interested in me. She was interested in the life she had lost. I decided that I no longer cared about her fate. I drove through the empty streets of the night with no clear plan, just enjoying the thought of being free, and suddenly I felt that victory is not revenge. Victory is the opportunity to start over. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know if I would find new love or if I would be able to trust anyone again. But I knew one thing. I would never be the person I was before this betrayal. And maybe it was the best thing that could have happened to me. Life after revenge. For the next few days, I hardly left the house. I could have celebrated. I could have rejoiced that I had destroyed both traitors. But instead, there was only one thought in my head. What next? I lost my wife. Although, to be honest, I had lost her much earlier. I lost a friend. Although, if you think about it, he never was. I lost the illusion of my ideal life, which, as it turned out, was built on lies. But at the same time, I found something more. Black small square, I found peace. Black small square, I found freedom. And most importantly, I found myself again. On the first morning after the divorce, I woke up without the usual feeling of anxiety. I no longer had to check my phone, wait for her to come back late at night, wonder if she was lying again. My life no longer depended on anyone, and that was the most precious feeling in the world. I went back to work, and now that Daniel was gone, I was in control. I reviewed the financial documents, changed all the passwords, made sure he no longer had access to a single penny. The company was saved, but I no longer wanted to stay in the same environment where every second reminded me of betrayal, manipulation, and lies. So I made a decision that surprised even me. I sold the company. I now had enough money to start a new life anywhere. And as I looked out the window at the city, I suddenly realized that it no longer held me here. The city was a part of my past, a part of a life where I had been betrayed and humiliated, and now it was time to leave and never look back. I bought a one-way ticket, a new home, new people, a new me, And for the first time in a long time, I felt not pain or anger, but true freedom, a new beginning. The city that had been my home for so many years now felt alien and empty. I packed up, rented a small truck, and in just a few hours, my old life was gone. No tears, no regrets, just a decision to move on. I chose a small town on the coast. There was no frenetic pace. There were no reminders of the past. It wasn't there. I rented a house with an ocean view, unpacked my things, sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, and for the first time in a long time, felt true peace. My life had changed. I was no longer chasing success. I was no longer trying to prove something to anyone. I was just living. I started reading a lot, going for walks, meeting new people. I was no longer the naive man I once was, who believed in eternal love and the loyalty of friends. But I didn't become bitter. I just learned to trust myself more than anyone else. One day I was sitting in a coffee shop, checking the news on my phone, and I saw an article that made me smile. Black Small Square, Daniel was officially convicted. Black Small Square, his business was completely bankrupt. Black Small Square, he was left with nothing. I imagined him sitting in a cell, realizing that I had robbed him of everything. And the best thing was that he had no chance of going back. As for Emily, I never heard from her again. Maybe she tried to find a new husband. Maybe she was hoping to get back to me. But her number was blocked, and the past was closed forever. I changed everything in my life, and it was the best decision I ever made. Black Small Square, I no longer look back. Black Small Square, I no longer held in the pain. Black Small Square, I just moved forward. And finally, I felt something that I hadn't felt in a long time. I was happy. Unexpected meeting. I thought I had gotten rid of the past forever. I thought it was somewhere out there in the big city, along with betrayal, lies, and pain. But life always has its own plans. It was an ordinary evening. I was sitting in a small restaurant, enjoying the peace and a good dinner. And then I heard a voice that made me freeze. Andrew? I raised my head and met my gaze with a woman who I never expected to see again. Emily. She was standing at my table. Her appearance was not what I expected. Black Small Square, tired. Black Small Square, exhausted. Black Small Square, her eyes no longer had the self-confidence that once irritated me. What are you doing here? I asked coldly, setting my fork down on my plate. She sat down opposite me, not waiting for an invitation. I didn't expect to see you here. I didn't answer. I just looked at her, waiting for an explanation. I found out about Daniel. She sighed, her eyes filled with regret. You planned all this, didn't you? I smiled. What? Did you think I would just forgive you after everything? He deserved it, just like you. Emily lowered her eyes. I made a mistake. I laughed bitterly. A mistake? No, Emily, you made a conscious choice. She nodded, her eyes filling with tears. I know. I want to make things right. I leaned closer, looking her straight in the eye. It's too late. She sat there for a few more seconds, as if expecting me to say something else. But I didn't. Finally, she stood up. I just want to say that I'm sorry. I nodded, but I'm not sorry. Her eyes widened. What? I took a sip from my glass calmly. I'm not sorry that it happened the way it did, because now I know that you were never who you claimed to be. I no longer held a grudge against her. I just didn't want her to be a part of my life. She nodded, realizing that the conversation was over. Well, then goodbye, Andrew. Goodbye, Emily. She left the restaurant, and I felt nothing. No pain, no anger, no regret. I had simply ended this chapter of my life, and for the first time, I was truly ready for a new one, a new chapter. After meeting Emily, I expected the past to drag me back into its web, but it didn't. I returned home, drank a cup of coffee on the veranda overlooking the ocean, and understood one simple truth. I was no longer the person I used to be. I began to live for myself again. I woke up without feeling anxious. I went for runs with pure thoughts. I worked on new projects that brought me not only money, but also pleasure. I no longer sought revenge. I no longer thought about betrayal. I simply moved forward. Once, while walking along the beach, I accidentally bumped into a woman carrying coffee. She tripped, and the hot drink spilled on my sweater. "Oh God, I'm sorry." Her voice was warm, moving. I looked at her and saw smiling brown eyes. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel distrust. I smiled back. "Don't worry. It wasn't my favorite sweater." She laughed. "Can I buy you a new one, or at least buy you a coffee?" I looked out at the ocean, at the sun setting over the horizon, and realized that I was ready to open myself up to something new. Why not? It was just a coincidence, just a chance meeting. But there was something more to it. Life doesn't end with betrayal. On the contrary, it's just beginning, and I was ready to take the first step into a new chapter. Second chance. I sat in a small coffee shop, watching a stranger carefully stir her coffee with a spoon. "What brought you to this town?" Her voice was light, casual, and there was not a shadow of falsehood in it. I wanted to start all over again. I told the truth, not going into details. She nodded, as if she understood me completely. "And how do you do it?" I smiled. "I think I took another right step today." Her name was Sophia. She came to this town several years ago, leaving the noisy metropolis for a simple, peaceful life. People often think that by running away, they will solve all their problems. She looked at me carefully. "Do you think they won't decide?" She smiled. "I think it's important not to run away, but to find something that can fill life with new meaning." I thought about it. Did I really just run away? Or maybe I found myself again. I didn't know the answer yet, but for the first time in a long time, it didn't scare me anymore. We talked for several hours, and I caught myself thinking that I didn't want this meeting to end. She didn't ask about my past. She didn't try to understand who was to blame for my mistakes. She was simply here and now, and maybe that was exactly what I needed. When we left the cafe, she paused for a moment and asked, "If this was your new beginning, what would you like to do next?" I looked at her. "Maybe we should have another coffee." She smiled. "Agreed." Starting to live again, the next few weeks became a new chapter in my life. I no longer thought about the past. I no longer looked for answers to questions that didn't matter. I just lived. Sophia and I saw each other more and more often. At first, it was just walks along the coast, then dinners in small restaurants. And then I caught myself thinking that I was waiting for each meeting. Black small square, waiting for her laughter. Black small square, waiting for her light jokes. Black small square, waiting for her voice, which would return a real sense of peace to me. One day, she invited me to her place. We were sitting on the terrace of her house, watching the sunset, and for the first time I felt that. I no longer felt empty. "You're different from the people I've met before," she said, sipping from her cup. I smiled. "Is that a good thing?" She looked at me intently and said quietly, "I think so." I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know if this was just another meeting between two lost people or if it was something more. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid to take a step forward. Because this time, I was finally living in the present, not the past. A life I didn't expect. I always thought that after everything that had happened, I would never be able to trust a woman again. That every look, every word would seem like a lie. But Sophia, she was different. It had been several months since we first met. I no longer woke up with thoughts of the past. I no longer analyzed what I had done wrong, who I had overlooked, why I had been betrayed. These thoughts disappeared. For the first time in a long time, I was simply happy. One evening, we were walking along the coast when Sophia stopped and looked at me as if she wanted to say something but hesitated. "What happened?" I took her hand. She took a deep breath. "I want to ask you something important." I didn't even blink. "Ask." She smiled, but her eyes were serious. "If you could change your past, Would you? I thought about it. Before, I would have said yes. But now, I looked at her, at the ocean, at my new life, and the answer was obvious. No, I said quietly. She tilted her head, surprised. Why? I smiled slightly. Because then I would never have been here, and I would never have met you. Her lips trembled, her eyes filled with pure sincerity. She said nothing, just hugged me tightly. And in that moment I understood this was the beginning of a new life. Without pain, without betrayal, without the past. Just me, just her, and just our future. The happiness I didn't seek but found. I never thought that I would be able to start my life over again. I didn't plan a new relationship. I didn't expect to be able to trust someone again. But life sometimes throws unexpected gifts. Sophia became my light. She didn't ask about the past. She didn't make me relive the pain that I left behind. She was just there, and that was enough. One evening, sitting on the terrace of her house, we silently watched. The sun set over the ocean. She took my hand and said something that changed everything. I don't know what will happen in a year or 10 years, but right now, I'm happy with you. I looked into her eyes and realized that I felt the same way. I was no longer afraid to love. I was not afraid to trust. I had let go of the past, and now I was ready to build a new future. The past had taught me many things. Black small square, trust is not weakness, but it must be earned. Black small square, revenge brings relief, but true victory is the ability to let go and move on. Black small square, and most importantly, happiness is not in finding the perfect person, but in finding someone real. And I finally did it. The end? No, this is just the beginning. Please subscribe to our channel Stellar Stories. We have new amazing stories coming out every day. Thank you.